because the moment that should have scared them felt normal, a sound, a stranger, a feeling they chose to ignore. Every story you're about to hear started the same way. I went camping alone last winter with my dog Roscoe, and it's something I'll never do again. That I had taken a few days off work and wanted to get away from people. That I loaded my truck with my gear and drove up a long, narrow trail that cut deep into a state forest. The road was barely maintained, covered in packed snow and ice, and there were no other cars anywhere. After driving for almost an hour, I parked at a small pull-off that looked like it hadn't been used in a long time. From there, I hiked another 20 minutes with my pack and Roscoe until I reached a small clearing surrounded by thick trees. The snow was deep, untouched. There were no footprints, no signs of anyone else being around recently. That was exactly what I wanted. That I set my pack down, cleared a spot for the tent, and let Roscoe wander while I worked. He stayed close, sniffing the snow, jumping around, just playing. I pitched the tent, staked it down hard because the ground was frozen, and laid out my sleeping pad and winter-rated sleeping bag. Inside, I knew it was going to be cold, well below freezing, so I layered properly. Thermal base layers, thick socks, a fleece, and a heavy jacket stayed woven after camp was set. Once the tent was ready, I gathered dead wood and built a small fire pit. I started a fire, let it burn down to a steady flame, and cooked a simple meal over it. That I sat on a log eating, while Roscoe lay nearby. The woods were quiet, and that deep winter where sound feels almost non-existent. I learned long ago from my dad that snow absorbs sound. After I ate, Roscoe suddenly stood up and started barking toward the trees. It didn't concern me at first. Deer were everywhere out there, and he'd barked at them before. That I told him to relax, and after a minute, he did. I checked the time and decided to stay up a little longer by the fire. I always carried a handgun when camping in remote places. That it was holstered at my side, like it always was. That that point, I felt fine. About 20 minutes later, Roscoe started barking again, louder this time. Then I heard it too, footsteps moving through the snow somewhere in the woods. That I stood up and listened. The steps stopped, then started again. Roscoe went from barking to growling, then suddenly went silent. That he stood there, staring straight ahead into the trees. That's when I felt uneasy. That I followed his gaze and saw a shop at the edge of the tree line. Someone was standing there, half hidden in the darkness, barely lit by the fire. That I called out, said he scared me, told Roscoe it was okay. The figure didn't move at first. Then he stepped forward, just enough for me to see it was a man. He asked what I was doing out there, that deep in the woods. His tone wasn't friendly. That I told him I was just getting out into nature with my dog. He didn't respond right away. He just stood there, watching me. That I could feel the situation turning wrong. That I calmly told him I was armed. He laughed slightly, said something about me threatening him instead of inviting him to join me, asked where my hospitality was. Then he turned and walked back into the darkness. His footsteps faded into the woods. That I stood there for a long time afterward, staring at the trees. Roscoe stayed close. That I didn't like any of it, but eventually I told myself he was gone. That I carefully put out the fire, throwing snow on it, stirring the ashes until nothing could glow. That I didn't want light drawing attention. That I crawled into my tent and sealed it up. Inside, I did everything I could to stay warm. Sleeping pad down, fully dressed, knit hat pulled on, sleeping bag cinched tight, hand warmers near my core and my feet. Roscoe curled up next to me, his body heat helping more than anything. I lay there listening to the woods, or rather, the extreme silence. After a while, Roscoe started growling again. Then I heard it, footsteps in the snow. They stopped, and Roscoe quieted, but his ears stayed perked. Then the footsteps started again. Closer, slower. They came right up to the tent and stopped. Roscoe began howling. I whispered for him to stop, terrified of drawing attention. When he did, he went back to growling. Whoever it was just stood there. I could hear subtle movement, a shift of weight in the snow. I had my gun in my hand, but I didn't want to make threats. I didn't want to be forced to follow through. I've never shot anyone, and I don't think I have it in me, even in self-defense. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I cocked the gun and said clearly that I was armed, and whoever was there needed to leave. There was silence for a few seconds, then footsteps again, moving away, slowly at first, then faster, until they disappeared into the woods. I didn't unzip the tent. I stayed frozen for hours. Roscoe stayed alert the entire time, the only reason I eventually nodded off. I barely slept. When the sky began to lighten, I packed up at dawn. We hiked back to my truck and drove away. I never went back to that part of the woods, and I never will. July 4th weekend, 2025. I drove from Melbourne, Florida, to Charleston, South Carolina, to visit a good friend named Mark he hadn't seen in years. He was there on an internship for his law program, staying in a house in the city that I was visiting for the weekend, sleeping downstairs on a couch by a set of windows. After a smooth drive, I arrived in Charleston, and before nightfall I played some pickleball. When night settled in, I went back downstairs to the couch by the windows. They faced another apartment building and a small maze of alleyways with an abandoned house across the street. The next day, after more pickleball in the morning, we went to the main Charleston market. We walked through it, eventually coming out near the docks by the water. That's when we saw him. A man in a wedding suit, shambling down the road. He wore a crisp bow tie, clean dress shoes, and a freshly pressed suit. Long black curly hair, tan complexion. The market behind us was loud, crowded, busy. Yet this man moved alone, slow, detached, as if the noise didn't exist. If we had crossed the street, we would have walked straight into him. Instinct kicked in. I grabbed Mark by the arm and told him we weren't crossing. We turned right, deeper into the city, and picked up our pace. He was moving slowly, so creating distance was easy. I told Mark it was strange that he didn't look homeless. His clothes were too clean, too crisp. Something about him felt wrong. Mark agreed. We kept walking. A few streets later, on another busy stretch of Charleston, we looked toward a shop and saw him again. The same man, same suit, same shambling movement. He was far down the street, diagonal from us, moving at the same slow pace. Somehow he had caught up. There was no clear way he could have reached that spot without us seeing him. I pointed him out. We both stared. It made no sense. Different part of the city, same man, same movement. We pushed it aside and kept exploring. The next day was July 4th. That night, we watched fireworks in an island about 20 minutes away. By then, we had mostly forgotten about him. We told ourselves Esh was just a strange guy wandering around. Still, something about him set off alarms. It felt off, wrong. That night, we went on a ghost tour we had already planned. It was my last night in Charleston, July 5th. The city was packed. Busy Saturday night. Crowds everywhere. Restaurant lights spilling onto the streets. That familiar Charleston atmosphere. After sunset, after the ghost tour, we walked through the main nightlife area. The street was crowded. A wave of people moved toward us, fast. And at the exact same moment, Mark and I noticed something that it was him. Same wedding suit, same bow tie, same black curly hair. Shambling, right in the middle of the crowd that he stood out. Instantly, his movement didn't match anyone else. People brushed past him without reacting. 2 people walked directly beside him, and he slipped between them like he wasn't really there. Same slow, unsettling pace. The crowd flowed around him, but he wasn't part of it. He glanced at us, just for a second, then continued forward. Mark and I looked at each other, shocked. He didn't belong there, that we both knew it. Instantly that we watched him until the crowd thinned, and when it did, we saw him clearly again, still shambling, still unnatural. He disappeared into a darker side street and turned the corner that we stood there, quiet, not panicking, just deeply unsettled. Later that night, we returned to the house. Mark went upstairs, I went downstairs to sleep. I shut the blinds and tried to relax. Sometime in the middle of the night, tap, tap. On the window. I froze. After a few moments, I forced myself to look. I lifted the blind slightly and looked down the alley. At the far end, I saw a man turning the corner. It was him. Just before disappearing, he looked back toward the window. I told Mark the next morning. Even he admitted it was disturbing. He doesn't believe in the paranormal. He's logical, grounded, and even he was shaken. As for me, I'm more spiritually sensitive. That experience stayed with me, and months later, it's still with Mark too. That we'll never forget that weekend. The man in the suit felt real and unreal at the same time. Something about it all was wrong. I drove home to Florida on July 6th. The image of him turning that corner has stayed with me ever since. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who double-checks door locks or memorizes the sounds of my own floorboards. That changed after 1 week last winter. I live alone in a small house I bought a few years ago. My routine is boring, predictable. Work from home, order groceries. Go to the gym late at night. I don't talk to my neighbors much. That routine is why it took me so long to realize something was wrong. It started with a noise around 2:30 in the morning. I was half asleep on the couch, TV on low, when I heard a soft thump near the back of the house. Not loud enough to scare me. I assumed something fell or the house shifted. I muted the TV. Nothing else happened. I checked the back door, locked. Went to bed. The next morning, the back door felt different. The deadbolt worked, but the handle was loose, like it had been twisted too hard. That night, I went to the gym around 11 p.m. like an empty gym. I got back around midnight. As I pulled into the driveway, my porch light was off. I always leave it on. I sat in the car, trying to remember. Eventually, I convinced myself I'd turned it off. Inside, everything looked normal. Still, I walked through every room, something I'd never done before. Thursday morning, my phone was at 12%. I always charge it overnight. The cable was connected, but the charger wasn't plugged in. I told myself I knocked it loose in my sleep. It didn't really make sense. That night, I stayed up in the dark, TV off, listening. Around 3 a.m., slow thumps from the back of the house. Footsteps, they stopped. The next day, muddy shoe prints near the back door, smeared like someone tried to wipe them off. Scratch marks around the lock. I called a locksmith. Didn't mention the footprints. He replaced the lock. That night, I blocked the door with a chair. Just before 4 a.m., tapping. On my bedroom door. Not knocking. Testing. I didn't move. It stopped. Footsteps. Moved away. In the morning, the back door was unlocked. The lock wasn't damaged. It had been turned. Police came. Found nothing. That night, lights on, knife on the table. At 2 a.m., the basement door was cracked open. I looked down and saw the outline of someone standing there. I slammed the door, ran to my car, called 911 again. They brought him out in handcuffs, barefoot, dark clothes. They found food wrappers, water bottles, and a phone charger plugged into the basement. Someone had been living there. Days later, I found a photo on my phone of me, asleep in bed, taken at 3:11 a.m. the same night my phone was unplugged. That image changed everything. He now faces more charges, but the damage is done. I will never go into a basement alone at night again, ever.